video is about all of Putin's presidential elections, and boy has he had many. He came to power in 1999, which means that he is on track to beat Stalin as Russia's longest-serving leader in the past 200 years. In 1999, Putin was appointed as prime minister by Yeltsin, who was president at the time. And then Yeltsin unexpectedly resigned just a few months later, making Putin the acting president. And his first act as president would be to guarantee that the former president, Yeltsin, and his family were not prosecuted for anything, because there was an investigation to members of Yeltsin's family for bribery. So Putin's first election was in 2000. The 2000 election was as close as Russia was going to get to a fair and free election, considering Putin's huge advantage in resources. He used state-run media to run ads against his opponents, and he was popular because of his tough response to Chechen terrorist attacks that later he was accused of orchestrating. So he gets elected to president and has a term of 4 years. And so in 2004, there's another election where he wins 72% of the vote. Lots of resources in favor of Putin, ballot stuffing, bias in the state-run media. In 2008, he was not allowed to run for president because at the time there were term limits. So a president could only serve 2 consecutive terms. So his prime minister, Medvedev, ran for president this time, and he won with 71% of the votes. And in his first campaign speech, he announced that he would appoint Putin as the prime minister if he won. Pace called the election neither free nor fair. They are basically a watchdog organization in Europe that monitors elections. They're supposed to be an impartial observer. Shortly after Medvedev took office in 2008, term limits were increased to 6 years. And Putin ran for president in 2012, because as you remember, it's 2 consecutive terms, and then you can just run again if you skipped a term. He won with 63% of the vote. And there was a wave of anti-Putin protests, one of the most notorious of which was the Pussy Riots protests, and then there was a subsequent trial. 10 to 20,000 people protested in Moscow on May 6th. The next election was in 2018, and once again there were accusations of widespread electoral fraud, including ballot box stuffing, forced voting, and threats against election observers. And then, of course, critics of Putin were just banned from running. Navalny was banned from running because of a trumped-up criminal conviction. In July of 2020, Putin added amendments into the Russian constitution that allowed him to run for 2 more 6-year terms. And that brings us to the 2024 election, where Putin shockingly won with 88% of the vote. Navalny was once again barred from running, and he died in prison in February. And the only specifically anti-war candidate, Nadezhdin, was also barred from running. There were also several instances of people setting fire to polling places in protest, including one lady who threw a Molotov cocktail at a polling station because she was apparently offered money to vote a certain way. And that's how Putin has stayed in power for 25 years.